What is happening, y'all? It's your boy, Chris here from Signs of Life. As they say, when the student is ready, the master appears. How y'all doing out there? Hope you can hear me loud and clear. I'm gonna pin that to the top. There we go. What is happening, y'all? We got a full house. It's been a minute since we did an ambient masterclass, so I thought, you know what? The stars are definitely aligned for this today. Greetings to all of you. I wish I could name you all, but there's so many here. What's up, y'all? So we're gonna get into it today. I have this lecture planned. 5 tips to stay motivated as an ambient music producer. You know, this has been quite a time. I have never seen more people like really accomplish their goals than in this time period. I mean, all planets are direct right now. Everything's moving forward. Reality feels like it's coming at you 1,000 miles a minute. But if you can really find that sort of calm and peace within yourself and really focus on things, I talked about this on my Patreon the other day, you know, you can get some good work done during this time period. So we are here and we're here to discuss how to stay motivated during times like this, when the energy is super high and it may feel like, you know, heaven around you, or it may feel like things are crumbling. I don't know, but what I do know is that I'm here to help you in any way that I can. So we're going to talk about that today, how to stay motivated. Before we do that, I want to say hello to all of you and take care of a couple housekeeping items. What's up? The Cube is here. Behrang is here. Behrang's been working really hard lately. We got Vincent Sky in the house. What's up, my brother? Good to see you again. Lo-Fi Sci-Fi Studio. What's up, homies? He says. Neon Soul's in the house. El Hulo's here. My man Waveform. Waveform not for long. Lab Music's here. Star Maze, what's going on, man? Inverted Popes, Philip Bauman's in the house. Man, I see some new faces. Michael R. Barbadell, Latko, dude, Light Construct, Ralph, Jeff Hendricks, yo, Devoted Love, Waslow, what's up, guys? Good to see y'all. All right, well, for those that are catching on the replay and probably exited the video by now, my apologies. Let's get into it. We're gonna get into this ambient masterclass here today. But before we do, I just want to say that if you miss seeing me live, you're missing out, because I'm live every single week over on my Patreon. On Patreon, we're doing weekly live streams, we're doing weekly tutorials, presets. I got one-on-one coaching with a bunch of unique and talented artists. So if you want to learn more and you really want that extra bit of help, come on over to my Patreon. You're gonna love that community. It's really wonderful and it inspires me every single day. So there's 5 different tiers. You can pick which one's right for you. A lot of the people who are chatting in the chat box right now are already part of that Patreon. So yeah, come on over. I'd love to have you there. And yeah, let's get into it. Y'all ready for this? I'm stoked. I'm fired up, man. This Aries moon's got me fired up. Let's do this. All right. Now, it would be remiss of me not to point out the fact that there was an album released yesterday, which is a very important album. And it is right down there. It is called Horizon Dispatch from Active Region. Who is Active Region? Well, you hear me talk about him a lot on the channel. His name is Echo Season. This is Echo Season's alter ego, aka Active Region. He proposed the question 2 years ago: what would it be like if I took my sound and my skills over to the exospheric realms. 2 years later, we finally have that vision. And it is what is known as now active region. So I encourage you to go check that out if you haven't already. It's a brilliant album. I love it. And if it inspires you, cool. It inspires me from the first time I heard it. Yeah, it's a great record. Inside the Pyramid, what's up? All right, yo, so let's do this. 5 tips to stay motivated. Now, I will say, I want to preface this. This is kind of a cool story. I wrote this lecture 35,000 feet above the ground. I was on a long flight and I wrote this. And that's just the kind of person that I am. I really never stop working usually. Like, I'm always thinking about YouTube videos and Patreon stuff and more music and more tutorials. I live this. I'm so deep in the game, you can't even like pull me out. I am in this. And those of you who've been following this YouTube channel since the very beginning, since 2021, like, I've never wavered, you know? I just keep coming back with hit after hit after hit. It's like, let's do this. Because I really want to inspire you guys. I really want to take you guys and elevate what is already inside of you. Because greatness is already inside of each and every one of you. So how could you separate the person from the path? Does that make sense? Each one of you has the potential to really do something in this lifetime. With ambient music, with whatever music that you're making. And part of my role here is to activate that in you, even if it's the sound of my voice that just triggers something. Like, wow, maybe I can do this. Maybe this is something that is calling to me. So hopefully the words that I say today resonate with you and they spark something inside of you to push you farther along on your path if you're already on it, all right? 5 tips to stay motivated as an ambient music producer. And as a reminder, the footnotes right there on the bottom, the full notes from today's class will be available on Patreon right after the conclusion of this live stream. That being said, let's do this. Tip number 1, remove all conditions. What does this mean? Well, I'm about to tell you. How many times have you sat down in front of your music station, fired up your favorite synths and plugins and got to work? Not long after, as soon as you feel like you've gained some momentum, something technical gets in your way. Maybe it's a track not routing properly. Maybe it's one of those synths not doing what you want it to, or maybe it's the music that you're making just doesn't sound like the music that you set out to make in the first place, and you immediately start to lose motivation. The slightest distraction can take you spiraling down a YouTube rabbit hole, Discord chat rooms, or maybe you just give up and launch the most current video game that you want to play and spend the next few hours doing something other than making music. If this has happened to you once, twice, or even several times a week, don't worry. You're not alone. Making music is one of those endeavors that takes a lot of motivation to keep going. Not only is it extremely challenging and it takes a lot of technical knowledge to get good at, but it's also quite difficult when the pathway between what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve isn't quite clear. I want to stop on that point. It becomes more difficult when the pathway between what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve isn't quite clear. So I meet a lot of people in my line of work who are trying to reach certain goals. But the problem is they don't know how to achieve those goals, and that's where I come in. I help direct and guide them towards something greater. I'm trying to take and actualize that talent inside of them and move them into a greater space, a greater mental framework, and on a technical level, making them better producers, right? So I know it can be hard. And I'm not here to tell you like, oh yeah, you can just do this and you can do that. What I'm here to tell you is that we're all in this together. There are resources and outlets out there, and there are people like me who are out there who are trying to help you get to where you want to go. That's why I said at the beginning of this video, when the student is ready, the master appears. However, it doesn't have to be this way, aka being frustrated, and your boy Signs is here, and I've got some tips to help you stay motivated. When I first started this channel, one of my main goals was to create a channel filled with not only tutorials and full track walkthroughs, but also motivational and inspiring content that would resonate with those who were looking for something extra that they couldn't find anywhere else. And to this day, those videos are some of my favorite, and as Signs of Life grows, I want to keep this original spirit alive with videos like this one. So those of you who are new or just need that extra voice inside of your head to keep you going and not give up. So you guys were here, a lot of you were here for the 10,000 subscriber live stream, where I repeated how grateful I am for this opportunity to have all of you, lifting me up on this soapbox so I can speak to matters like this. And it's really important for me because it fills my heart up with gratitude to see you guys accomplish your goals. We have 2 artists, actually 3 artists coming out in the next month on Symphosphere and Exosphere that I personally coached along the way to help them get to where they're going. And that makes me freaking happy because they had a goal in mind. They're like, Chris, I want to do this. How do I get there? Or what steps can I take? And I help coach and guide them. So if you want to learn more and you want coaching like that, links at the top of the chat box. All right, tip number 1, remove all conditions. The first tip that I have for you is a piece of advice that my fellow Symphosphere co-founder Dawn used to tell me back in the day. Remove all conditions. But what does this actually mean? Well, for starters, we often put tons of unnecessary pressure on ourselves to be able to do certain things, if we have the right kind of training or knowledge to back that up. This is especially true for adults who often get into producing ambient music for the first time. We expect ourselves to just know how to do something. Let me say that again. We often put tons of unnecessary pressure on ourselves to be able to do certain things, if we kind of have the kind of training and the right kind of training and knowledge to back that up. So what I mean is that as adults, we expect that we're supposed to be good at everything that we try. And it's simply not true at all. Because sometimes things are actually very hard and they take a lot of they either take a lot of knowledge or training or expertise or hours spent doing that. They say it takes 10,000 hours to make someone an expert at anything. 10,000 hours. So if you want to do the math on that, I mean, it's like, that's years, right? Especially if you pace yourself. So this is especially true for adults who get into producing ambient music for the first time. We expect ourselves to just know how to do something, when actually the opposite is true. So this is part of tip number 1, which is removing all conditions. More often than not, this is simply not the case. Producing music is not only challenging, but as a musician, you're walking that thin line between experimentation and discipline. Let me say that again. As a musician, you're walking the thin line between experimentation and discipline. We know how quickly things can just go off the rails. And with ambient music in particular, like you just asked ChatGPT, how do you get better at ambient music? And he's like, just try new things, experiment. But sometimes those experiments sound absolutely horrible. Do you know what I'm saying? Someone walks in on the room, they're like, what are you doing? And you're like, I'm just plugging in my modular here. It's like space farts. Like, what? You're making progress there? So our adult brain kicks in and we go, oh man, I'm wasting my time. But in reality, are you? Are you wasting your time? How are you going to discover anything new if you don't try something that is going to lead to unexpected results? But then you have the one who's being the observer and then one who's being observed. So if you're sitting there and people are watching you make space farts, are you gonna judge yourself for it? Because adults, as adults, we usually do that. We usually go, oh, I'm not good at this. I'm just gonna give up. But how can you make anything new or not yet heard by going through the exact same process you've been going through 1,000 times before it? It's extremely difficult, yet the alternative is even more risky. Trying something new to bring out an unexpected result that might lead you to a new discovery. Does that make sense? Removing all conditions means just that. Remove anything in your process that limits you in any way and continue experimenting until you get to where you want to go. This can be a great way to break out of your current production paradigm and add tons of new skills and techniques into your workflow that you aren't currently practicing. Some suggestions would be to try a new piece of gear, a new way of approaching the same tools you already use, or trying to change something in your process to end up in a different place. Vincent Sky says, I heard a great quote the other day. If you hit the wrong note while improvising, just keep circling back to it. It convinces the listener it's supposed to be there. I.e., who's to say it was wrong? Introspectral said, this is solid advice that helped me out of many fields of life. Yeah, I agree. So remove all conditions. One of my favorite ways to remove all conditions is to start a new track by using experimental sound design, either with plugins or any of my hardware that you've got available, right? Record those results and then send them back to your DAW for further processing. So let me say that again. Start a new track by using experimental sound design, like taking your modular rig and plugging in, different envelopes into different oscillators and LFOs, doing different parts of, whatever they're gonna do. Record those results and then send them back to your DAW for further processing. See if you can get anything out of that. And by further processing, I mean adding like saturators and reverbs and delays and effects and like maybe even a granular plugin, like emergence, like something like that. See if you can create a soundscape or bedding for something to live on top of using the tools that you have available, and in a way make it unique because you didn't plan it or expect it. By doing this, you're removing any condition that you started out with and might come up with something fresh, inspiring, or both, and can lead you to an entirely new direction and keep you motivated along the path. So, this is one of the hardest things to do, which is like admitting to yourself that maybe you don't know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, that's okay. I said this in an earlier live stream or an earlier video. In the beginner's mind, there are infinite possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are a few. So even though we want to reach 10,000 hours to be an expert, it removes that ability to act or think like a beginner unless you put it there. So you have to the key word in play music is play music. So you have to dive into that place of the unknown in order to pull out something new. And therefore, you have to walk that line between not judging yourself, or maybe just remove all conditions and just say, I don't care what happens. And maybe it'll come out sounding good on the other side. That's what remove all conditions means. It's more about your own personal process. And this is something this is the reason why it's tip number 1, is because it's such an important point. Like, everywhere you look, try new things, experiment. But a lot of times it's the hardest thing to do because you're lost. You're like, I don't know what to do. I have Serum, I have Vital, I have Hive. What am I supposed to do with those things? Well, first of all, start with the manual. Start with the manual. Maybe read the manual. Maybe find out what the function generators do, and find out what maybe you could do with an envelope generator, or find out how you can make an infinite drone out of LFOs that trigger each other. I mean, anything you can do to really you know, like break through that normal, what I said, paradigm of your traditional learning and your traditional like habitual, like I need to make an ambient track, that could lead you on an entirely new direction. And then those techniques that you experimented with become second nature. That's how any child learns how to do something. They just experiment with it until they figure out how it works. Does that all make sense? Too many options is its own prison, Andronicus says. Amen. All right. Tip number 2. Set realistic goals. One big mistake that beginner producers usually make is setting their goals too high. And from the start, if they're not achieving those goals right away, they lose motivation and faith in the process. So this ties into tip number 1. Like if you're starting out at something and you set your goal at like, you know, winning the Grammy or something like that, or like, you know, like making it to, I don't know, some higher level or whatever. And if you don't reach those goals, you're like bummed out. Or if I want to sound like this and it doesn't sound like that, or someone tells you it doesn't sound like that, you lose motivation and faith in the process. This can be far too easy to do. And in some sense, it goes hand in hand with human nature. As human beings, we naturally want to be good at something and therefore set our expectations on ourselves to perform at the level that we feel that we currently should be. There's no timeline in music. And let me repeat that. There's no timeline that you should be expected to hit certain milestones. And if you don't hit those milestones, you're a complete failure and should just give up and try something else. That's not true. It's not like that. As a matter of fact, many musicians, some of whom are considered great by any standard of the imagination, weren't always great. And this can be hard to imagine if you're catching up with them later in their career, but the important thing to remember is that we all have to start somewhere. So even though you see like musicians as like great musicians, they weren't always great. Maybe they were good and maybe they started out, you know, in a way that made them, you know, appear like they were always meant to be that person or always meant to be, they always had that skill. But a lot of the times, musicians don't start out great. They have to work their way up. Artists don't start out great. And you may be thinking to yourself, yeah, Signs, I get it. Be realistic with my goals. But what happens when you start to become frustrated with how long it actually takes to reach the goal, to reach that level of the music that you wish to make? I get that too. And it's definitely not something to dismiss because we should be having a real conversation about this topic. And my best advice to you, other than just to not give up, is to continue checking in with yourself if you still love it. If you still love this process, if it's a yes, then find ways to lower your expectations that you have for yourself and just have fun with it. Do I need to go over that again? Because I find myself side by side with people every single day who are really trying to push themselves as artists and trying to reach higher tiers of music production. And if you sort of like if you're standing next to someone and you go, oh, I wish I was that, or oh man, I wish I'll never get there. Eventually that voice in your head is you're gonna start believing it. So you gotta check in with yourself and ask if you still love it. Because if you still love it, if it's a yes, then find ways to just kind of set your expectations realistically and have fun with it. I'm just gonna make a record, like a song this week. I just wanna make a sound this week. I just wanna make maybe an album by the end of the year. That's cool for me. And you'll find that if you do love it, if you are still loving the process and you don't feel like there's too much pressure on yourself or you're never gonna be what you want to be, then you're gonna find that if you do love it, the work isn't gonna feel like work. Doing the extra effort to like get better at certain aspects of sound design, doing the extra effort to read manuals, doing the extra effort to like really learn these synthesizers like inside and out, that's not gonna feel like work. That's gonna be fun. There's no better feeling than spending time working on something and to come out the other side of that time spent feeling like it was super valuable. You got a ton accomplished and you have a lot more to look forward to. This is that afterglow that you should be constantly chasing. If you do this, you'll always want to return to that place of satisfaction, and that could be just what you need to stay motivated along the way. That's a really powerful paragraph, I have to say. There's no better feeling than spending time working on something and come out on the other side of that time spent feeling like it was super valuable, you got a ton accomplished, and you have more to look forward to. That's the afterglow that you should be constantly chasing. If you do this, you'll always want to return to that place of satisfaction, and that could be just what you need to stay motivated along the way. I hope that made sense. When I wrote that, I was like, yeah. Because when I think about my own production journey, I still love it every single day. When I think about my coaching journey, when I think about the work I do on Patreon, when I think about the sound design work that I do, when I think about the work that I do as, on Symphera and Exosphere, our record labels, there's nothing I'd rather do in the world. So I'm still motivated. I'm still inspired. 11 years later, I'm like, yep, it's a yes, it's a yes, it's a yes. Because I admit, before Ambient chose me, I was just kind of like I was trying different things. I was figuring out what it was that was really, truly calling to me. But as soon as I discovered Ambient, it was lock and key. Game, set, match. I hope you guys feel that way too. I am a perfectionist and that is my downfall. Well, listen, man. If you are a perfectionist, it could be your downfall or it could be your greatest strength because you won't settle for anything less. Right? Vincent Sky says, it's always easier to break down complex problems into smaller, easier, and achieve tasks. Finish an album versus making one track, or writer's block versus just do some garbage sound design. Vincinity says, I wonder how Martin Sturzer got to the level where he seems simply pump out the most amazing ambient music of all time with ease. His workflow is so smooth, it's astonishing. Martin didn't always start out that way. And even if he was here, he'd tell you the same thing. He probably struggled at the beginning, just like we do. You're catching up with Martin much later in his career. The first initial musings of Martin Sturzer were probably not what they are today. And I think one of the most important factors in Martin's workflow is he understands what each synthesizer can do. And therefore, his only goal is to bring out the best of that sound. And if you properly know how to use three things, the synth, the delay, and the reverb, you can accomplish a lot. Proper filtering, proper delay, proper reverb. I reference Martin's music more than any other music in my coaching. I will say, look at this. Here's the thing. Here's Martin. Listen to this track. And that helps because he's someone who's really he's reached that tier where everything is believable, And that's just, again, quality composition, good sound design. You mix those two things together. There you go. It's a good point, though. Tip number 3, challenge yourself. Technique synths kind of plays into what I was just talking about. As producers, we can often find ourselves way over our head with our current abilities and become outshined by our lack of technical knowledge. Isn't that the truth, right? As producers, we often find ourselves way over our head with our current abilities when our current abilities become outshined by our lack of technical knowledge. Music production, like other creative endeavors, is an endless pursuit of knowledge, gaining experience, and developing a process that is unique and works for you. So what happens when we set our sight on a part of music production that is outside of our current skill set? We are forced to learn, and this process of challenging yourself could be just what you need to stay motivated. So, for example, if you don't understand how to use a compressor, you should learn how to use a compressor. If you don't understand how to properly EQ a sound, you should learn how to EQ. If you don't understand how to use a filter, you should learn how to use a filter. If you don't know how to mix, you should learn how to mix. Now, I have videos on my channel about mixing. I have videos on my Patreon about mixing. Because when I used to look at like mixing tutorials, there's a lot of mixing tutorials out there, but they're usually like, here's how to mix a full band. Here's how to mix a pop track. Oh yeah, the drums go here, the bass goes here, the vocals go here, the synths go here, the hi-hats go here. What does that have to do with me? You know what I mean? Like, it's really hard. I mean, it gives you like a baseline, like, okay, like bass is at the bottom, hi-hats are at the top, the vocals are somewhere around 2000 hertz. Okay, I get that, right? But like, it doesn't say, yeah, like, it doesn't say like, here's really like what you should be looking out for. I go over that a lot on my Patreon, I have to say. But that's because I know there's a void there. There's a void there for people who are trying to understand how to do this on like a really atmospheric, spacious level, how to get wide mixes, how to get full on frequency separation. I understand this. So spend time learning that. And that's what I mean by challenging yourself with techniques that you're not comfortable with. For example, it wasn't until nearly a decade into my ambient music career that I really got into modular synthesis. I was quite content with my little VSTs and hardware synths and really didn't have a desire, nor did I have the money to start dabbling in this type of synthesis format that all my friends either swore by or swore to keep me away from because it was too expensive to get started. I had friends warn me, don't get into modular, dude. No, don't do it. I was like, why? And they're like, just don't do it. I was like, okay. So I didn't, even though I was curious about it, you know. What I found is this newfound desire to learn and improve at modular synthesis has really reinvigorated my love for designing sounds in a modular environment, especially when we know it's not exactly easy to produce anything on a modular synth that sounds good at all. And many of you will attest to that, is that it's not exactly easy to produce anything on a modular synth that sounds good at all. It's hard. It costs thousands of dollars to get a basic synthesizer. And some veterans out there might not agree, but think about how difficult it is for a beginner to grasp the concept of using voltage, envelopes, LFOs, and complex routing systems just to get a basic patch started. And it gives you a deeper appreciation for modular synths. Yes, it is hard, but my goodness, is it satisfying to get it right. Andronicus, thank you for the chat. Thank you for the super chat. Let me just repeat that last sentence. Yes, it is hard, but my goodness, is it satisfying to get it right. Oh my gosh. Have you ever felt that way? You've been like tooling around on a modular synth and all of a sudden, like, boom. You're like, oh shit, that sounds good. It's almost like a surprise. You're like, you know, because when I turn on my Hydra synth, I turn on the M back behind me. I'm like, oh yeah, this is easy. And I get something good right away. But with modular, I'm like, oh, yeah, shit, I got plugged in. It's hard. And when you finally get something good, you're like, damn, man. Same with VCV rack. Even if it's not modular, maybe it's time for you to try something new or perhaps another form of synthesis that you've been thinking about or need a better understanding, such as subtractive synthesis, granular synthesis, maybe FM synthesis, if you don't know what FM is. If you're new to all this, maybe you just, and don't want to spend any money, do yourself a favor and just try out VCV Rack. It's a free modular environment with tons of free synths, and you can just experiment and see what you come up with. At the very least, learning something as complex as modular might be exactly what you need to challenge yourself and stay motivated. Does that make sense? VCV Rack is free. And most of the basic modules in VCV are free. It's like Vital, but like a lot bigger. There's a lot of great free modules on VCV Rack. You don't have to get all the, just the Surge stuff alone is like ridiculously good. The new Surge XT modules, there's like 30 of them, and like that would be all you need. They got a reverb, they got a convolution reverb, they got a filter, they got an oscillator, they got a wavetable, they got everything. LFOs, you name it, it's all there. Pile that on with all the freaking audible instruments and all the freaking VCV like standard stuff, like just head on over to the VCV library and it's overwhelming. It's like, whoa. Download. Anyway. Chris, your tutorials are the best. I was able to make a few pads just following you doing it. You're welcome, Rob. Dude, listen. You guys know me, right? I'm in it for the long haul. I'm not going away. Which leads me to my next point. Tip number 4, learn from the best. 59 people are watching. Jesus. Nice. Happy Pisces season, guys. Woo! All right. All right. Tip number 4, learn from the best. If you're producing music in an established genre, such as ambient, there are a ton of already existing pieces of music to draw inspiration from. Don't be afraid to use these pieces of music, aka using reference tracks, to help guide you towards your desired result. At least for me, I found this is one of the best ways I can help steer the music that I'm making towards what I want it to eventually sound like. Now, the other day on Patreon, I gave out a construction kit, a full track construction kit on Patreon of all these different stems. And I gave them to all my patrons. I said, hey, here you go. So you could either use reference tracks or you could use actual templates. And on Patreon, I provide you with those actual templates. Simple enough, right? There's also other free presets out there. You can grab free presets. You can grab the presets that I made on the 10K stream. Like, there's lots of other ways to do this. But by reference tracks, I mean like the masters, the modern masters, Echo Season, Active Region, Martin Sturzer, AES Dana, Carbon-Based Lifeforms, Martin Non-Static, Remote Vision. These are the modern masters, right? Even a simple vibe check is sometimes all that's needed to validate your intuition and help you reframe your current composition. Now, what I mean by vibe check is like, on this track, you see behind me, right? There's a ghost track up here at the top, okay? The ghost track. And the ghost track, I literally can just put an MP3 of a track, say one of Martin's tracks or one of Martin's tracks, Martin, Non-Static or Sturzer, and I go, okay, how close am I? Even though that's a master track, I can still turn it down about 6 dB, and you still get a good like a frequency representation of like how good that track is versus where your track is. Solo their track, listen to your track. Solo their track, listen to your track. Is it the same? Does it have the same frequency response? Meaning put a span on their track and put a span on your master fader and see if it's the same. right? Because we're talking about the frequency spectrum, the entire frequency spectrum. Are you utilizing the entire frequency spectrum? Are your pads cut off at the right point? You know what I mean? Is their bass way too loud? Like, these are all technical considerations that you need to use in order to get better. So that's what I mean by vibe check. And by vibe check, I mean listening to the reference track and then quickly jumping back and listening to your own track to check up to see if it's both on spec, on a technical, and a creative level. You don't have to directly copy your reference track. That's not what I'm saying. And it's highly advised that you don't, but a quick listen will do wonders to help you move forward. Yep, you could use Adapter Audio Metric. You could use that other one. Damn, I just forgot the name of it again. What the hell is the name of it? It's called shit, I forgot what it's called. Anyway, there's other ones out there that are like, you can straight reference one-to-one. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'll figure out the name of it. Speaking of moving forward, if you tried the reference track trick over and over and still not getting anywhere that you're in your music that you want it to be, there are several professionals out there who are willing to help you. Many of you are aware that I offer one-on-one ambient coaching, which has done wonders for my existing clients. And over the span of my entire teaching career, which is now almost over 2 decades, it's the best and fastest way to make progress. So if you want to quickly level up your production game, search around and see if your favorite YouTubers or other professional musicians are offering such a service. One-on-one instruction could be what you need and what separates you between you and reaching the level that you've always dreamed of. So I'm one of them. There's other people out there. You might even just like message the person and see, like, if you really like that YouTuber, you really like, do you offer lessons? Like, can I take lessons from you? I do. Let me check in with you guys. Reference 2. There's so many great tools out there, guys. There's so many great tools. And it's just like, you know, like, honestly, like, I mean, you could use Vision 4X, right? You could use Insight. You could use, what's the name of that one? It's called, let's see here, Studio Tools, Referencing Tools, Audio Lens. Yeah. There's lots of them. There's lots of them. Anyway, so too many tools. Which brings me to number 5. All right, number five. Trust the process. Behrang says, and also the sign circle is a great way to get better and stay motivated. Yes, I have a signs inner circle. Peter says, I don't understand what you mean by references. References means pick a track that you really want to have your track sound like and put it up against your track. And by doing that, you're gonna hear where the sonic differences are. Is the bass louder in his track? Is the bass louder in my track? Do I not have enough sequences? Do I not have enough, whatever it is? Are my pads too loud? That's an easy fix, right? So you can take an MP3 of a track that you like and put it in your DAW. Solo that track, mute it, and then listen to yours. Easy, right? So you're basically just comparing and contrasting. That's what I mean by references. I also have construction kits on Patreon. And so you can make tracks out of stems that are, you know, would help guide you. Yeah, sure. Number 5, trust the process. Trust the process is a common saying in sports, especially when you get to higher levels of competition. But as a music producer, it still rings truer than ever. You have to trust the process. But what does this actually mean? Are we simply trusting that the universe has our back? Or we're exactly where we need to be? While these mantras might be helpful, it's easy to see how these mental mindsets might actually hinder our progress rather than move us along. So, if you're too caught up in, I'm exactly where I need to be, right? And the universe has got my back no matter what. Yes, this is true, right? However, you do have to stay proactive and check in with yourself. That's what this whole lecture has been about, right? Starting with the positive side, we do need to have a bit of faith that we are where we need to be and we're doing the right thing. If you zoom out and see the bigger picture, think of how long the journey is to reach the higher echelons of music production. It's pretty vast. And in order to cross that gap, you're gonna need to believe in yourself and trust in the process of becoming a better music producer. If you can do that, you might find things that just flow naturally and there's far less obstacles in your way. So it's almost like you're using your intuition to pierce through and say to yourself, this is what I'm doing. This is what I love to do. And no matter what happens, if I just keep doing it, things are going to work out. Okay? For better or for worse. Sometimes bad things can happen, sometimes good things can happen, right? That's what faith is. On the other hand, if you feel like you're not getting anywhere, it can be hard to just trust that things are going to work out, even if you feel like you're running in place and not going anywhere at all. My best advice for you, and pretty much what this whole video boils down to, is this: find your balance. Do everything you can to discover who you are as a producer and what the next steps for your production journey will be. The journey of 10,000 hours begins with the first step. You got this. And that, my friends, are 5 tips to help you stay motivated as an ambient music producer. Yeah, balance and a good workflow. Balance and a good workflow. See, it's really not that hard. It's really not that hard. Decoda. That's the name of that software. Decoda. I knew I'd find it. Decoda. I always forget it. You're welcome. Listen, this is what I do. I do signs check-ins every single month on Patreon. I do live streams every single week. Like I said, when the student is ready, the master appears. So, what's up, y'all? Good to see you guys. Does anybody have any questions before we float this down the Piscean River here? 66 viewers. This might be a record. We had a record. Wow. Yes, I do cross the line between, ambient music producer and motivator, motivational speaker. But, Moon's in Aries. I'm fired up, man. You're welcome, Synkrotron. I do not offer mastering tutorials on Patreon simply because I have all my mastering done in-house. Just install Span. Just download Span and install it. That's all I gotta say. It's free. It's a free plugin. You're welcome. The notes from today's show will be posted on Patreon as soon as we end the live stream. So if you want to grab all the notes from today, head on over there. I have a new album coming out tomorrow. Did I mention that? I didn't. I have a new album coming out tomorrow. And it's going to be available on Aura. What is Aura? Aura is our brand new subscription service on Bandcamp. And you can get remastered versions of my first 2 albums. You can get remastered versions of Outlets of the Sky, 3 Remote Vision albums, and Faith 47 albums. The brand new Ascendant album that really no one's heard is on there. And tomorrow, my new record will be there. So, am I going live tomorrow? That's a good question. I don't think so. I have a coaching call, but I am releasing a new album tomorrow. I'm excited about it. So I will leave the link in the chat box if you guys want to head on over there. Check it out. It'll be posted tomorrow morning. And yeah, I love these masterclass live streams. This is how I started this channel. I started this channel with just positive intentions. I started this channel because I felt like there were people out there who needed to hear my words, learn from me, and I could make an impact. And I feel like I've done that. I have a lot farther to go, but every day we're getting there. We're getting closer. I mean, what's the next goal? 100,000 subscribers? Like, cool. But really, my work, my daily work, it's on Patreon. It's here. You know, this is it. My energy, my effort. And I'm a music producer first. So what can I say? It's what I love to do. Andy K, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So I hope you guys stay motivated. Hope you stay inspired. And I'll be back soon with more ambient live streams. I manifested this for myself. I said to myself, I'm really gonna put a conscious effort into doing more YouTube live streams and this year, and so you'll see more of me. But if you want to catch up with me on a more regular basis, head on over to Patreon. Link is in the I don't know description over there. Yeah, that one. Anyway, how fast do I have time for coaching? I coach almost every single day. Literally. It's pretty. So send me a message. We can get you set up on a one-to-one as soon as tomorrow. Anyway, you guys have been great. Thank you guys so much. I'm gonna go post these notes on Patreon. If you want to just kind of chat and hang out with us, please join our Discord community. The link is always down below in the description of every video that I post. You can join us on Discord. We got awesome things happening over there. And yeah, it's a really great time. We do what we do and then some. We got these community compilations that we do. There's a lot of great people who are sharing music. Behrang, thank you so much. My man. And yeah, we got the next assemblage compilation is due to be released next week. So I'm super excited about that. And if you know what I'm talking about, join us on Discord. Anyway, as always, you guys, thank you all so much. I appreciate you. See you guys soon. And as always, keep your heads in the clouds and your feet planted firmly on the ground. My name is Chris from Signs of Life. I'll see you all on the other side.